Hi there, and welcome to the Salted Pepper, where we cook for real life using real food and we keep it real simple. And today we are gonna make two different styles of ham with two different glazes. And for this video, I'm gonna use the 8-quart Ninja Foodi and the 6.5-quart Ninja Foodi. And that is because the hams that we could find at the grocery store, one of them will only fit in the 8-quart. But if you have a ham that is smaller and can fit in the 6.5-quart, you can certainly do that. What I'm gonna do is do my bone-in, uncut ham in the 6.5-quart and my bone-in spiral cut ham in the 8-quart. We're gonna do two different cooking techniques just based on my experience and a really funny story about a ham that I destroyed. It's true, it happens. It happened to me, it can happen to you. Hopefully after you watch this video though, it will not happen to you because you will learn from my mistakes and you don't have to make them yourself. I will also be putting out a video that is separate on a boneless spiral sliced ham. So stay tuned for that. And when that video is available, I will link to it right up there for you. All right, so the first thing we need to do is figure out what kind of glaze we're going to put on our ham. You don't have to follow these. You can use whatever glaze you like. You can even use the glaze that comes with the ham if you have like a packet. Whatever you want to do is fine. But what I decided to do was be a little bit different than some of the usual pineapple, honey glazes and cherries and things like that. I'm gonna do things a little bit different, but I do have cherries, I do have pineapples, and I do have apples here. So for the spiral cut bone-in ham, I'm gonna do an apple cinnamon honey glaze for that. And then for the ham, the one that has the bone in and is not spiral cut, I'm gonna do a sour cherry, pineapple, and clove type of glaze. So I'm pretty excited. I think these flavors are gonna be absolutely wonderful. The first thing I wanna do is go ahead and get my apples cut up and get them into the 8-quart Ninja Foodi. So let me just move this out of the way for a second. And to do that, I do want to core them and take the skin off because we don't want that left over. Now, if you wanted to just throw them in, just dice them up and throw them in, and then strain at the end, you can do that. But I like the actual flesh of the apple. It's kind of just a little chunky, and I like that. So I'm gonna keep it in. So I wanna get the skin off and the cores out for this. You don't have to worry about cutting them up into dices or anything. In fact, I don't really even recommend it because it's just gonna waste time. All you need to do is just take the peels off and then pop them right in there, just like that. Because under the pressure cook time, they are going to reduce and become like almost liquid, honestly. So you're not gonna have big chunks of apple or anything. All right, so just 1/2 of an apple left to go. And I wanted to let you know that I am using Fuji apples, but you could use Gala apples. I mean, you could use any kind of apple that you wanted. I chose the Fuji over like, let's say a Granny Smith because I didn't really want that tartness. I wanted it to be a sweeter apple. So that's why I chose this, but you could use whatever apples you wanted or you had on hand. One thing I do recommend though is that you cut your apples right before you're gonna put your ham in the pot because you don't want them to brown up. If you do need to do your prep ahead of time, just squeeze a little bit of lemon juice on the apples. That won't affect anything during the cooking time and it'll keep your apples from turning brown because they turn really fast. Sometimes it's hard to keep things straight, and I'm so used to working with the 6.5-quart over here. And I looked down after I peeled all my apples and I was like, why do I have cloves on this side of the cutting board? The cloves are going with the cherries and the pineapple. And then I realized I put all of these in the wrong pot. But no worries, because we can just dump it into this pot. There we go. Don't even need to wash this pot out. It's gonna be fine. All right, so this one's hard for me to kind of maneuver around. So let me clean this up a little bit, and then I'm gonna get the cinnamon sticks in there, and we'll get the ham in. I'll show you how I'm gonna put the ham in, and I'm gonna put a 1/4 cup of water. In fact, I can do that right now. Just put the 1/4 cup of water. That's all you need. You do not need a lot of liquid because those apples are gonna give off a lot of liquid. So you don't want to add too much because you don't want your ham to be submerged in the liquid, and the ham's going to give off juices too. So 1/4 cup of liquid is all you need, 2 cinnamon sticks, and 1/2 cup of honey, but I'm going to pour that on the ham after I get it into the pot. All right, so I am gonna use my red silicone sling for the ham. This is gonna give just a little bit of elevation above the liquid, not complete though. And that is because the ham is just too big to go on the rack. But if your ham is smaller, it can go on the rack. That'll give it a little more elevation. I would recommend doing that because the less amount of your ham that's actually submerged in the liquid, the better your end result's gonna be. But we have to do what we can do with what we have, and this is gonna work best for the ham that I have here. All right, so we're gonna put those 2 cinnamon sticks in with the 1/4 cup of water and the apple slices. And then I'm gonna get the ham positioned here. Now, ideally, and I can certainly try it, but I don't think it's gonna work. Ideally, I would have the ham this way, okay? And maybe it will work in the 8-quart. We'll find out, because that way the part that's gonna be submerged has a little bit of protection. If you turn it over this way, where it was all the way flat, then that first piece of ham is gonna be probably pretty much overcooked no matter what, because it's gonna be directly in the liquid. So I'm gonna give it a try this way. But if it doesn't work, no big deal. I also just wanted to let you know, I put a couple of toothpicks in here because this ham was very floppy, and I wanted to secure that a little bit just so that the steam did not get underneath too much. We want it to warm it, but we don't want to overcook. That's a big problem with spiral sliced hams and reheating them, is that the heat gets into all of the little layers and it dries out the ham too much. So we're gonna do a couple of things to prevent that, I hope. But first, we're gonna try to get this in just like this. It may work, it may not. I haven't even tried it yet. Let's just see. I think I can lift it in just like that. I think that's a little too tall. So you can go above the pot a little bit, but this is sitting, I think, just a little bit too high. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna have to flip it around. All right. All right, and then I just tuck those little straps underneath so that they're not flopping up and get in the way of the pressure cooker lid. Now what I'm gonna do is take a little scraper here and I'm gonna separate all the little spiral slices, and I'm gonna pour honey all over the ham. Then we're gonna put the pressure lid on and we're gonna set the pressure to low. I really recommend you doing this. Set it to low. It's gonna be a gentler heat, and we're gonna go for 2 minutes per pound. And I will give you my rationale for picking that time after I get the honey on and get the pot started. All right, so I got the honey on, and we're going to turn the valve to seal, make sure it's sealed. We are going under pressure, and we're gonna go turn the Ninja Foodi on, pressure, take it down to low, and then we're gonna do 2 minutes per pound, and this is about an 8-pound ham, so I'm gonna go 16 minutes of low pressure. Very important. And hit start. Now, it's gonna take just a little bit of time to come up to pressure, and I'm not exactly sure how long. Probably about 9 to 12 minutes would be my guess. And then we will cook on low pressure for 16 minutes, and I will be doing a natural release, and I will probably do a complete natural release on this. Now, the reason, or the way that I came up with these times is obviously I ruined a ham. So I know that a bone-in spiral sliced ham will be totally ruined at 3 minutes per pound of high pressure. So I thought about it, and I've also done a boneless spiral ham already too. So I kind of have an idea of the amount of time those took. So I figured if I'm gonna go on low, I am gonna go to the 2 minutes per pound. I think you're gonna be safe with that. Hams that we get in the United States in our grocery stores are almost always fully cooked. You can read your label, and I encourage you to do that. Make sure that it says fully cooked if you're gonna follow either of these timetables, because if it's not fully cooked, you need to approach it completely differently. But most of the store-bought hams in the United States are going to be fully cooked. So we just need to reheat. Now, I read a ton of information on the internet about reheating them, and I went to the USDA page thinking that they're the experts, and I'm going to assume that they are. But they did say something kind of funny, and I wanted to share it with you. They said that these hams are perfectly edible right out of the package because they're fully cooked. I've always believed that, you know, that you could just take them and slice them, and I still believe it. I think you can. I mean, I think they're fully cooked. But they also said if you choose to reheat it, you must reheat it to 140 degrees internal temperature. Now, I find that funny. Why? You know, as long as we get it warmed through, why do we have to come up to that 140 degrees Fahrenheit temperature? That didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. But I think when we serve our ham and we want it to be warm, that is a good target temperature. Not because of bacteria or anything, just because the resting time, it's gonna cool off a little bit. The spiral sliced hams are going to cool off faster anyway because they're already cut. So I think we're gonna aim for 140, but you know what? If our temperature is only at 120, I'm gonna be fine with that too. Because remember, you don't wanna overcook. You always wanna undercook. I'm hoping to go and use the Tender Crisp lid as well and do a little glazing at the end and a little Tender Crisp action on the outside of the ham. So we can always heat it up a little bit more that way too. All right, so let me clean up the honey and all this stuff, and then we're gonna get to prepping the bone-in uncut ham because I'm gonna do that just a little bit differently. All right, so for our uncut bone-in ham, I'm gonna do a little spin on a traditional type of preparation that my mom used to do all the time. Every time she made a ham, she would put pineapple rings around with a maraschino cherry and a clove and all around the ham and then bake it in the oven. So that's kind of the memory that I have of my mom making ham. But since we're gonna go under pressure, I'm not gonna do all that because part of the greatness of that is when you get the caramelized pineapple rings. I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna do it just a little bit different. The first thing I'm gonna do is take a knife and kind of slice in just a little bit into the fat. Not too much, but just a little bit. Maybe about 1/4 of an inch. And into this harder part. The reason why I'm doing that, I'm not sure if it's gonna make a huge difference or not, but you know, I want the flavors that we're going under pressure with, the steam, to kind of get in and penetrate the meat. So if I can help that by doing this, that's what I'm gonna do. If it doesn't work, well, no harm. It took like 3 minutes, right? So just do that a couple places around. And then I'm gonna stick in my cloves. Just gonna pop them in wherever you want. You don't have to pop them in where you put a little mark. You can pop them in anywhere you want. This is a tablespoon of whole cloves. And if you don't like cloves, you don't have to do this. There's no problem there. You know, I always say, make your food how you like it. I'm also going to make up a little bit of a brown sugar glaze to go over the top, but I think we will do that at the end, not before we pressure cook. And I'll make it with some of the pineapple and cherry juice. I think that's going to be delicious. Now over here, I am going in where I made the slits because otherwise it's pretty tough to penetrate through there. Oh, that one went in fine. I'm looking forward to this. I'm excited. This is my 4th and 5th ham that I've done. And so I've learned a lot, let me tell you. I've learned a lot. I've learned how to destroy a ham, that's for sure. All right, that looks good. Now, I wasn't particular about how I spaced them or anything, just tried to evenly put them around. So, all right, so the next thing we're gonna do is get the Ninja Foodi ready to go with our liquid and our cherries. What I'm using for this is not maraschino cherries. They are just a little too sweet for me. So I've had this jar of Morello dark sour cherries because I'm making a really cool brownie with them. And I thought, oh, you know what? This will be perfect to go with the ham because they are not super, super sweet, but they're not like so tart you can't eat them. I actually prefer them and I'll eat them right out of the jar. And they are really good. So if you haven't tried these, give them a try. You can find them in a lot of grocery stores. They're called sour cherries, Morello, and the brand here is just specially selected, looks like. But I know Trader Joe's has a brand that people really recommend. All right, so I'm gonna put the whole jar of cherries in, but not all the juice. I don't want that much liquid in there, because remember, the ham's gonna give off some juice itself. And I'm gonna save the juice, some of it at least, for the glaze at the end, the brown sugar glaze. So I'm just gonna carefully dump as much out as I can get out. Now, if some's left in there, don't worry about that. All right, that looks good. And this is 24 ounces. So this is a 24-ounce jar of the Morello cherries. So I'm just gonna dump those in the bottom. We'll set this over to the side here for a second. And then I have my pineapple. I'm gonna do the same thing with the pineapple. I wanna get the juice out. I'm gonna use some of the juice, but not all of it. So I'm just gonna go ahead and, now of course you could use a strainer to make this easier. Whoops. All right, and we're gonna put those in. Now what I want to do is put in about just a little bit, probably half of a quarter of a cup, so 1/8 of a cup, a little bit more, it's okay. I'm going to put in a total of a 1/4 cup of liquid and mixing them between the cherry and the pineapple. Again, we don't need a lot of liquid because the ham's going to give off juices and so is the fruit. So we don't need to put like a whole cup of liquid just to go under pressure. All right, now we get our ham in. I'm so excited about this. Now, because this is not cut, it's gonna take a little bit longer to cook. And we can safely go on high pressure because we don't have all those individual slices that we have to worry about drying out the meat. And we wanna get the internal temp, like right in the center, to be warm enough when we serve. So high pressure is gonna be just fine for this. And we're gonna do 3 minutes per pound. And this is about a 7.5 pound ham. Now again, I'm gonna try to put it up so it's face up. Ordinarily, we always put meat like this when we're cooking it because we want the fat to render out, but I don't want this ham slice to be in the liquid if I can help it. So I'm gonna turn it this way, see if we can get it into the pot. Now, because we have the cherries and things in there, we may have to make some room by kind of moving them around a little bit. Perfecto. All right, that fits in just fine. So 7.5 pounds is probably the max size. And you know what? It depends on the shape of the ham too. So this one fits in really well, but you could get one that doesn't and be the same weight because the shape does make a big difference. So I would recommend, I know this sounds silly, but I would recommend taking your inner pot to the store when you go shopping for your ham if you want to do it in the Ninja Foodi or in an Instant Pot. All right, we're gonna put the pressure lid on. We're gonna go to the seal position, and this time we're gonna go on high, and we're gonna do 3 minutes per pound, which would be 21 minutes, and then we have that half a pound, so I'm just gonna do 22 minutes. I'd rather err on the side of underdone than overdone. All right. And this pot hasn't quite come to pressure yet, so it's probably been about 8 to 9 minutes, I would say. So I would expect it to come to pressure at any time. So obviously, this guy's gonna be ahead of this guy, but that won't make any difference. We're gonna do a full natural release on this one, and then we will get the glaze made up and glaze it and try to see if we can do a little tender crisp action on that one. All right, so we have the spiral sliced ham that has the bone in, and it was pressure cooked on low for 2 minutes per pound, so that was 16 minutes. And now it's been natural releasing for about 20 minutes. And I thought that maybe the natural release would be done by now, and it hasn't been. So I think based on the time that it took to come to pressure, and that cook time, that 20 minutes is gonna be enough for the natural release. So I'm gonna go ahead and flip the valve to vent the rest of the pressure so we can move on and get our glaze ready. I don't think a full natural release would hurt anything, but you know I always err on the side of under heating or cooking rather than over. So I'm gonna go ahead and, oh, and guess what? Just that second, the red button went down. Isn't that incredible? Okay, so 20 minutes, so that's good. All right, we're good to go. So now the red button's down, so we are depressurized. Talk about timing, right? All right, let's see. Did we overcook this one too? I will be so upset, let me tell you. I will be so upset. I mean, like I said, 5 hams, come on. Anyway, all right, let me get this out. It's not gonna be too easy for me to do that. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna take the whole pot out. That's gonna be a little bit easier. Oh, it's heavy too. All right, low pressure too. Too long, I think. I mean, it does not look as bad as the other one. Let me just tell you that. But I still think it's too much time, which is so weird because when I did 1 minute per pound, it was cold. Oh, speaking of that, let's go ahead and get a temperature and see where we are, temperature-wise. So we're at about 160, 165. All right, so we're gonna have to drop the time down from 2 minutes per pound on low to maybe 1.5 minutes per pound on low. But anyway, this one does not look nearly as bad. It might not look great when I bring it out, but it really does not look nearly as bad as the other one. I'm gonna just set it right there. All right, and then I'm gonna strain the apples because we wanna still get our glaze. Ooh, don't wanna overdo that. I'm like at the very, very, very max here. All right. Now, of course, you would do that a little bit easier because you would not have the ham in your way. So I'm gonna put that in there just till I kind of look at this ham and determine what are we gonna do. Are we just gonna pour the glaze over top or are we gonna tender crisp? So what I wanna do is really look in the inside here and actually give it a taste. How does it look? Let's see, how does it look from that side? You know, I mean, it's a little rugged. You can see the bone coming out. So all that tells me is that it is overcooked again. It's crazy how fast these go. All right, let me taste it though. It's good. Okay, that's delicious though. I'll be honest with you. That's absolutely delicious. So it may be overcooked and I definitely will take the time down in my written recipe, but it is not ruined by any stretch of the imagination. It's not as beautiful as I was hoping, but it's not ruined. All right, so now let's go ahead and get this back out. And yes, that was a little hot. And get those apples back in. All right, let's fish out the cinnamon sticks here. This smells so good. And there's just a little bit of liquid left in there, which is perfectly fine. And I'm just gonna kind of mash this up, mash the apples up. Oh my gosh, I would say there's probably about a 1/4 cup of liquid. All right, now for the final touch. Butter, butter. Yummy butter. I'm gonna put in a 1/2 cup or 1 stick of salted butter. You could use unsalted too. I just happen to only have salted butter here. I would probably choose unsalted if I had both kinds because of the salt in the ham, but I don't. So I'm gonna mix this in. This looks so good. Oh, I'm excited. Oh my gosh, that looks so good and it smells amazing. So as this was cooking, we could smell when it was coming up to pressure, we could smell in the house and it smells like a honey baked ham. It smelled so good. And that's what it looks like. Okay, now we can reduce that, but I don't think I'm even going to. I'm gonna give it a little taste to see if I need to add any more liquid or anything like that, but I don't think I'm gonna reduce it. I thought about reducing it, but I think I'm gonna pour it over like it is right now. I know I'm using a tablespoon. You know, you use what you have, right? That is so good. Wow. All right, so what are we gonna do for this baby ham here? First, I need to get this out into a different container so I can put the ham back in. I really don't want to crisp it up. I just don't want to take the chance. It tastes delicious right now, so I don't think I'm gonna do that. But I'm thinking. Oh, and guess what? Our red button dropped on this one. So I'm gonna go ahead and open this lid just to let any of that extra heat out. Well, this one looks really good too. All right, I'm excited. All right, let's get a temperature on this one here. And I'm just gonna go right in here. All right, so we are at about 121, 122. That's perfect. So I'm fine with that because we're gonna air crisp a little bit, and again, I don't wanna overcook it. So the spiral ones are really tough to get right, guys. Definitely undercook and go on low. That would be my, my best advice is undercook. So maybe, I don't know, 1.5 minutes per pound is what I would suggest. 1 minute just didn't do it the last time I made one. But I'm making that other video. All right, I don't need to get all of it out, but I want to get some of it out. So what I'm going to think about here now is, do I want to pour this over? Or do I just want to pour it over? You know what? I'm going to pour it over in the pot and then just broil it for just a minute. I don't want to dry it out too much, but I want to get this on the way that I intended. Because even if I overcooked mine, you won't overcook yours now. So I want to show you exactly how it should be done in a perfect world that I don't live in. All right, so let me get this back in. Just like it is fine. All right, so I just poured that glaze on top, and I'm gonna go ahead and broil, and I'm gonna broil just for 5 minutes. I really don't wanna over broil this. Okay, broil, and 5 minutes. Not even preheating, so I'm not gonna even worry about that. All right, let's check out the next guy, which I know is gonna be a little bit better, obviously, because he does not look overdone at all. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. It smells wonderful. You really get that clove smell, and the juices are a real interesting color. They're very different from the apple one. All right, so I'm gonna get this strained out. This is very interesting. Okay, I'm gonna get this strained out. I'm gonna do that off camera. No need for y'all to see that. Just gonna strain that out, and then we're gonna make up our glaze for this guy and get him air crisped. All right, so we just have a few seconds left on that 5-minute broil, and we can open it up, take it out, and let the ham rest before we slice into it. Even though it's already sliced, just let it rest for at least 5 minutes. And this one I'm gonna let rest for a good 15 minutes, which is fine because we still have to make the glaze for that one. All right, so that 5 minutes of broil did not seem like it dried out the meat at all, but it did sort of bake on this glaze, which looks fantastic. All right, so I'm gonna get this ham onto a platter and let it rest while we make up the glaze for the uncut bone-in ham. So let me get this out of the way, and then we'll finish it up, and then we get to taste it, and that is what I'm most excited about. I really am looking forward to both of them, honestly, but now that this browned up so beautifully, I'm looking forward to seeing how this glaze works on this ham. All right, so we have finished the bone-in spiral sliced ham with the cinnamon apple honey glaze, and it really does look beautiful. Even though it's slightly overcooked, it still looks beautiful, and I tasted it and it tastes phenomenal. But we're gonna compare it to how this one tastes at the end. First, we need to make the glaze. So to do that, I'm gonna turn the Ninja Foodi on high sear saute, and I'm gonna use my little mix and mash to kind of mash this fruit some. You could also use an immersion blender if you wanted it to be really fine, which I may do if this doesn't break it up enough, but it looks like it's kind of doing a pretty good job. If you wanted a really smooth glaze, you definitely would want to use an immersion blender. Which I may end up doing, to be honest with you. Some of the pineapples just are not really mashing up as much as I thought that they would. So I'm gonna end up using an immersion blender at the end. So I'm not even gonna worry about doing that right now. I'm gonna add 3/4 of a cup of brown sugar, about a tablespoon of the pineapple juice, and about a tablespoon of the cherry juice. The reason why I'm not using the ham juice is because there is quite a bit of salt in that, and I don't want to oversalt the glaze. I would recommend using the ham juices for making a soup, things that you can then control what you add to them, and they'll absorb that salt flavor. Since we're not, we don't have anything in here like beans or pasta or anything like that, I'm afraid it would become too salty. So that's what I'm going to choose to do. Oh, it's already looking good. All right, so I'm gonna get my immersion blender out, and then I'm gonna do a quick pulse blend on it, or you could throw it in a blender if you wanted. That would be fine too. But I'm gonna let it boil, and then I'm gonna blend it up. We're gonna get this ham back in, pour that glaze over top, and do the tender crisp lid. All right, so this is almost done. What I did was I used my immersion blender, I tilted the pot, and I just made sure I did not touch the bottom. My immersion blender has some metal on the side, so you wouldn't want to put it all the way down into the pot. But if you are careful, you can use the immersion blender directly in the inner pot of the Ninja Foodi, but you do need to be careful. If you are concerned about it, transfer your sauce over and just blend it at the very end, which is fine too. So this looks good. It's been boiling for just about 3 minutes and it's nice and thick. It's a very dark color, but I gave it a taste and it tastes delicious. So we're gonna see how it works on the ham. So I'm gonna get this glaze out of the pot into a measuring cup. We're gonna get this flipped over, pour that glaze over, and do the tender crisp lid. And hopefully we can do that in the 6.5. If for some reason I can't, then we will do it in the 8. But I'm pretty sure we can do this in the 6.5. All right, so we've got our glaze here in the measuring cup, and now I'm gonna deal with the ham. I wanna flip it over, and we're gonna hope this works. Oh, this looks great. This looks really good. Now you could take the cloves out or leave them in. I'm just gonna leave them in unless they're falling out there. All right, let's see if this is gonna work. Now I didn't clean the inner pot, you don't need to. If you are using a stainless steel inner pot, you may want to, just because it might stick. Let me just see here. Nope, so we wouldn't be able to do it with the sling. But you know what? There's no reason why we need the sling. We can put it right on the bottom of the inner pot and that should give us enough clearance. And then we'll just lift it out carefully with some meat forks at the end. Just pop it in there. There we go. All right, now that we've got our ham in there, let's pour the glaze over top. Now I'll tell you, this is a very dark, it's a very odd looking glaze. So it better taste delicious, right? Because it is very different looking. I'm excited about it though. It smells amazing. All right, so now we're gonna go ahead. Now this one we can broil a little bit longer, and I want to broil it a little bit longer. So I'm gonna go to the broil function, and we're gonna do 10 minutes on this one. We don't have to worry about drying out the inside of the ham. It's just gonna hopefully caramelize that glaze and maybe render some of that fat. So 10 minutes is good. I'm gonna clean up, and I'm gonna go ahead and taste the spiral bone-in ham. All right, so while this is finishing up broiling the glaze on, I'm gonna go ahead and give this guy a try. All right, so let me be fair here and get one of the outside pieces, definitely. Those are gonna be the most dry for sure. And you know what, let me go from the other end and I'll tell you why. Because I'm taking it from the end that isn't really sliced that well, I think. No, I guess they're both about the same. Okay, no problem. It's kind of weird the way that this worked. I guess because of it's overcooked a little bit. I guess that's the reason why it's kind of folding over. It's not really those nice clean slices that you get with a spiral sliced ham. But that's okay. That's all right. It looks pretty good. I'm gonna go into the middle here too. So I'm kind of destroying this ham right now, but I want to get some of this glaze and a middle piece. I'll tell you, I'll be honest with you. If you're gonna get a ham that is spiral sliced, get boneless, because honestly, this is kind of more of a pain than just carving a ham. Like I can't even seem to get the right slices out like I want. It's very odd. I've never cooked one of these. Well, I destroyed one the other day, but I've never made one to serve. But I just don't find them to be, worth it. But anyway, they just seem a little bit more cumbersome to deal with than just slicing a regular bone-in uncut ham, which are gonna have much better results with anyway in a pressure cooker. But anyway, maybe you guys know how to carve one up better than I do. All right, let's get a little bit of this glaze here. And now I've got some pieces that were from the center and some from the outside. And I'm gonna taste both of them and give you my honest opinion. The one that I destroyed yesterday, I posted in my Facebook group. It was horrible looking. And that one tasted like sawdust pretty much. I mean, it was bad. It was bad. So let's see how this one fared. It's good. It's good, actually. I mean, It doesn't taste super dry or anything. It's a little bit tougher than I'd like, but it's not like super duper dry. All right, let's get some of the inside. Much better. That glaze is nice. All right, it is not bad at all. It is definitely overcooked, so I would even start with 1 minute per pound, not even 1.5 on low pressure. It may not be heated all the way through, and maybe you could use steam at the end. That might help. That'll be even gentler than low pressure. Or use a crock pot or another method, because this is the second bone-in spiral sliced ham that I've overcooked, and the first one was almost inedible. This one is definitely edible, but not something I would really want to serve to dinner guests or for a special occasion. So I'm a little concerned. I look forward to doing my next test, which is going to be the bone out spiral sliced ham. I'm going to be doing that soon, and you can watch that video too. But I'm going to just go on the record and say that I'm not a big fan of the bone-in spiral sliced hams. I just don't think that they are cooking up as well as a boneless spiral sliced or the bone-in uncut ham. All right, so we're gonna move this guy, and let's move on to the next ham. All right, so we're on the cool now. We've gone 10 minutes on broil, and we will open this lid in just a second and see what we have. I'm expecting it to be pretty dark, so it's not gonna probably look like a ham that you're used to seeing. It looks more like a brisket or a pork roast, honestly. But it smells really good. All right, now I gotta lift these out with my meat forks here. And this is not nearly as hard to do as it is if you have a spiral sliced ham, because you don't have anything, you know, it's a solid piece of meat. Well, guys, I like it. I think it looks good. So now, unfortunately, we have to let it rest, and you need to let this rest at least 15 minutes. You don't want to carve into it until it rests that long, or you'll end up drying out the meat when you slice it. Looks good. Wow. That looks nice. Now, I don't mind that it looks charred. It's really not charred. It's just the color of the marinade, or the glaze. But it looks really good. Now, I can tell you right now, the inside of this meat is definitely not overcooked. It is perfect. Wow. This is delicious. I mean, absolutely delicious. This glaze, if you don't mind the way it looks, tastes so good. Oh my goodness. Okay, hands down, please try a bone-in uncut ham just one time, and I bet you will never buy the more expensive spiral cut hams again. I don't make ham that much. In fact, I don't know that I've ever made ham, except for now I've made ham 5 times. Tomorrow will be 6 times I'll make ham in a week. But ordinarily, I don't make a ham. My mom used to make a ham all the time, and I'll have to ask her. I'm pretty sure she got the uncut bone-in hams. There's just no comparison between the two. Even though that one is overcooked, and I accept that totally, that's my fault. But even if it wasn't overcooked, the texture of this meat is 10 times better. Absolutely. I just hands down prefer this one. I even like the glaze on this one. Now, one thing I will say is that you want to be careful that you don't eat a clove. Maybe I should have removed those before I put the glaze on, just so you don't have somebody bite into a clove. That would be quite pungent if you bit into a clove. But anyway, I wish I knew how to carve this better because I would show you, but I don't. So I'm just winging it here. But yeah, look at how beautiful that looks. Really, I'm impressed. So I'm really happy with this ham. This is how I would do it, definitely, from now on. So 3 minutes per pound, high pressure, total natural release, and then air crisp it at the end. It's simple and it's perfect, really. It saves a lot of time. As far as a spiral slice bone in, I would still stick with low pressure, but I would do 1 minute per pound and then use the either low bake roast or even the air crisp function or the broil function at the end to finish heating it through. I still think though, if you have to heat it more than 5 minutes on broil, it's gonna dry out the meat. So you might wanna take it to the bake roast function on a real low heat, like 200, if you need to get that center all the way warm, if it's not after the 1 minute. All right, so my next video is gonna be boneless spiral sliced ham, and I'm gonna do it on low pressure, and I'm gonna do it for 1 minute per pound, and we'll find out how that works. I think that that's gonna be the happy medium with the spiral sliced hams.